And today we're tuning into a hearing hosted by the House Select Committee on the CCP. It covers the strategic competition between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party.
The committee is unveiling a report to inform policy related to America's economic and technical competition with China.
Let's dive in.
Welcome to our final business meeting of 2023, during which we will consider bipartisan policy recommendations related to America's economic and technological competition with the Chinese Communist Party. I am profoundly grateful to the ranking member for his bipartisan work to produce this report, as well as the contributions of all the members who contributed dozens and dozens of recommendations to advance American prosperity for decades to come. The report represents a culmination of our work over the past 7 months on economic and tech issues, including 5 hearings, 4 in D.C., roundtable discussions in California, Detroit, Iowa, and Wisconsin, most importantly, Wisconsin, an economic Thunderdome debate, a tabletop exercise simulating the economic aspect of a Taiwan contingency, along with a field hearing in New York City. The result is a comprehensive framework for how the United States should approach its economic competition with CCP. This is a product that I believe is greater than the sum of its parts, and taken collectively, these recommendations form a balanced approach that adopts a more assertive posture to protect the American economy and our national security when it comes to the CCP, and a more collaborative approach when it comes to economic cooperation with our key allies and partners, all the while safeguarding American technology and capital. It is the product of hundreds of hours of work from members and staff. It's the product of divided government and men and women of good faith coming together in a spirit of principled compromise, and I hope all the members of this committee will support it. And without objection, the chair may declare the committee in recess at any time, and I recognize the ranking member for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair Gallagher, for your leadership in producing this essential strategy to win America's economic competition with the Chinese Communist Party. You and your staff have truly worked in a bipartisan way to incorporate priorities on the Democratic side. I want to thank you so much for your and your staff's efforts. At a time when there's so much dysfunction and gridlock, I'm proud that we were able to rise to the seriousness of the challenge, and we are presenting a unified message to the CCP and, importantly, to our allies and partners around the world. Over the last few months, Republican and Democratic Select Committee staff worked early mornings, late nights, weekends, and even over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend to solidify and negotiate the policies recommended in this report. Their expertise and deep commitment helped make this work product possible, and their work is greatly appreciated, and I'd like to give them a round of applause, if possible. The strategy outlined in this report is to reset, prevent, build our economic, trade, and technological relationship with the PRC. Those 3 pillars draw upon 9 hearings, numerous roundtables and meetings, and select committee events all over the country, from Silicon Valley to Iowa to Detroit to Wisconsin to Wall Street. It's clear that we need to move forward from our outdated assumptions and also up our game, leaning into our strengths and undertaking a radical revitalization of America. We can only outcompete the CCP by being the best version of ourselves internally and externally. I'm particularly excited about the 3rd build pillar that demonstrates how we should up our game, including by attracting the best talent in the world, leading in innovation and manufacturing technologies here at home, strengthening our relationships with our allies and partners, and protecting ourselves against the CCP's unfair trade policies and human rights abuses. This report is the roadmap for a new, ambitious economic policy, and these recommendations deserve the full support of the Select Committee and indeed the entire Congress. I look forward to their adoption and work together as Democrats and Republicans to move these recommendations into legislation as soon as possible. Thank you, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ranking Member Krishnamurthy. I now call up the Select Committee report. The clerk shall designate the report.
Introducing the report, Reset, Prevent, Build, a strategy to win America's economic competition with the Chinese Communist Party.
Without objection, the report will be considered read and open for debate. Do any other members wish to speak on the report? Mr. Johnson is recognized.
We've heard so much testimony in so many hearings, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ranking Member, about how the Chinese Communist Party looks toward markets. They love government intervention that distorts markets. And of course, that is not fair to global trading, but it also makes their people poorer. And there are times when some in American industry will come to us and they will ask for this type of government intervention in our markets, ostensibly because for national security purposes. But in reality, we know that they're interested in industrial policy, they're interested in protectionism. And I think this committee could have made an error if we had gone too far down that path. Mr. Chairman, you talked about this as a balanced and assertive work product. And I would agree that there were some important trade-offs that were made by both you and the ranking member to make sure that we got to a place where we would have overwhelming support for this work product. I do think the challenge for this committee, for this Congress, for this government as we move forward will be to make sure that the provisions in this report are implemented, are executed, and are maintained for national security purposes rather than for protectionism or industrial policy. The implementation will really matter, and how we write some of these bills will really matter. My friend Mr. Auchincloss, who I think has been a strong and clarion voice over the last year on these topics, has talked about the importance of making sure that we don't create even more mechanisms that encourage rent-seeking, that say that decisions about our economy should be made by lobbyists and by attorneys rather than by technicians, by inventors, by scientists. I think we have a work product that can be executed well, that can rebalance, that can reset our economic relationship with the Chinese Communist Party. I will be a proud yes on this. But again, I would close by just asking all members of the committee to be focused on implementation that furthers fair markets rather than holds them back.
Thank you.
With that, I yield.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I appreciate the comments from my friend from South Dakota. I'll associate myself with those comments. I cannot get to a yes on this report despite the really thoughtful engagement of members and staff on both sides. I continue to think threads of industrial policy and protectionism run too strongly throughout it, and I'm happy to expound upon that in my written remarks. But I will say that there is much good in here, and I look forward to working with committee leadership and committee members to distill some of those 80-20 policies for a bill that we can action this Congress.
Well, the gentleman has my commitment to working towards that very outcome, an 80-20 bill that does get to that objective, and I've made my intentions known to the Speaker and House leadership. I also want to thank the gentleman for his thoughtful engagement with this product. He did not dismiss it out of hand. He genuinely tried to make it better and indeed succeeded in that regard. His language on GSP was essential. A lot of the recommendations, and I think you see this tension throughout the report. As we try and defend ourselves from CCP economic aggression, we need to enhance our economic and technological partnerships with the rest of the world, and I think the gentleman and I are aligned on that, as well as various bills of his, like the SOAR Act, are reflected in the final product. So he has my commitment. I welcome a thoughtful dissent on the particular issues where he has concerns, and as my commitment going forward that we will strive for that 80-20 outcome. Thank you. Mr. Whitman is recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank you and the ranking member's leadership on this. Thank the other committee members. I think this is a very thoughtful and reasonable set of objectives that this committee should expect to be achieved by the committees of jurisdiction. I think our effort now is to heavily encourage the committees of jurisdiction in the legislative effort that we will undertake to make sure that these bills get heard before the committee, come to the House floor. The tremendous amount of work and effort that goes into this has to come to fruition through the legislative process. I know there's lots of thoughts and ideas about who should do what. This committee, though, has done an incredible job of putting this together. So we have done a lot of the foundation work for the committees of jurisdiction. I would heavily encourage those committees of jurisdiction to use this, to use the work that this committee has done, to use the goodwill that's across the spectrum here, and make sure that that is the emphasis on getting legislation through the committee to the House floor and passed. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore ShenyunCreations.com.
I'd like to say this is the first time, but there have been others.
How many?
Who can keep track?
You think this is a joke?
Darling, we need answers, and you're gonna give them to us.
Tell us again.
My car broke down. I brought it here.
I got stuck paying an expensive repair bill.
So it's true.
How much, darling?
$2,300.
$2,300.
Well, what was I supposed to do? My transmission was shot.
You pick up your phone and you call CarShield before the car breaks down.
Plans through CarShield cover up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car.
That's right. A plan through CarShield could save you on some criminally high auto repairs, especially if your car is out of warranty. So, call CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company, before a breakdown and save yourself from getting stuck in car repair jail.
Let me guess. You hate saving money.
Who hates saving money?
Apparently you do.
All you had to do was call CarShield. And you could have protected yourself against expensive repairs.
Yeah, and then my price will go up the minute I file a claim.
Shut up! CarShield has the price locked in.
For as long as you cover your car.
Guess I should have called CarShield?
It's about time you said something that made sense.
Now you know what you need to do next time.
Bet he'll call CarShield now.
So can I go? Or
Don't get handcuffed paying expensive auto repairs. Call now and get the CarShield guarantee. Your price will never go up and your coverage will never go down as long as you cover your car. In just minutes, you could have a plan that covers up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car. Don't wait until it's too late. Get CarShield's best coverage yet.
Call 800-965-0729. 800-965-0729. 800-965-0729.
Anyone who's ever sold a home will tell you it's really hard. And it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we take care of every detail.
Welcome back. We're watching a hearing hosted by the House Select Committee on the CCP. It's on the strategic competition between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party.
The committee is unveiling a report designed to inform policy related to America's economic and technical competition with China.
Let's get back to it.
Mr. Lukemeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations also to you and the ranking member. Well done. And I want to just reiterate what Mr. Whitman just said. I think we've got a great work product here, and as well as what Mr. Johnson said, that we can be proud of. A lot of stuff in here can go to the floor of the House with the committee's jurisdiction carrying those bills and get the job done. But I think as we've been here for a year now with this committee and have seen what's transpired with China over this past year, initially we thought they were getting ready to have a booming time as COVID was over. They were changing their economy around, and they went the other direction. And I think we've got an opportunity here to push them in a way that can keep them back on their heels. This committee has done fantastic work to expose what's going on in China, expose their weaknesses from the standpoint of their economy and their weaknesses in their military aspects, as technological aspects. We've also pointed out their strengths so that we know what we're up against. And I think this next year we will have a lot of opportunity to continue to push back. But I think our job has just begun. This is a good start. but we have China on their heels. They are limping along right now. We must continue to put the pressure on and don't let up. And with that, I'll yield back.
Thank you. Do any other members wish to speak on the report? Ms. Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I plan to support the bipartisan nature of this report and its publication. I am particularly proud of the section in which we call for funding the National Science Foundation, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and the Department of Energy's Office of Science. As the now ranking member of the Subcommittee for Research and Technology on the House Science Committee, and previously as chair of that subcommittee, we passed through the science part of the CHIPS and Science bill last term in Congress, and it became an unfunded mandate. And if we are going to win the future and be able to compete effectively and not fall behind to the place that we got into, which led us to having to do what I believe was a catch-up bill with CHIPS primarily, this is a very key step, and it should be heeded throughout the Congress. I also really appreciate what is in this report on the American automotive industry, in particular with the autonomous vehicle technologies that we need to maintain dominance and control of here in the United States through U.S. automakers. And if it's by way of testing, which we certainly know that there are imbalances, and if it's with regard to proliferation of autonomous vehicle technologies. Our auto industry has a goal of reaching 0 auto accident fatalities. We certainly have a long way to go with purely driverless cars. But I do see this technology and have long seen this technology as key to minimizing auto accident fatalities. And what we don't want to have happen is to find ourselves in the same place that we have fallen into with battery electric vehicles, and also with regard to hydrogen. The United States is well positioned with hydrogen energy, particularly coming out of the infrastructure bill that was passed, the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Jobs Act of 2021. We have many startups, we have large companies, we have the semi-truck industry adopting hydrogen at a fast rate. I see this all over my district in southeastern Michigan and Oakland County, Michigan. But autonomous vehicle technology, LiDAR technology, is mission critical for us. And I really applaud this report for honing in on AV technology, and I'm pleased to support it. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to add my congratulations. I will be a resounding yes on this. I would like to call attention to recommendation 3, subparagraph 6 on page 43. This is the GSP renewal. The paragraph starts by calling for reauthorization. Yes, we absolutely should have done that 3 years ago. But then it says in order to accelerate it, we should modernize it. I think the fastest way to accelerate it is simply reauthorize it. We've been fiddling around with that. And I will say that we did a resolution out of this committee that was signed by every member of the committee except for a couple people in Ways and Means. But both the chair and the ranking member signed that resolution calling for a clean reauthorization of GSP, and I rather hope we will turn our attention back to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as we were talking about, it's not in this report, but we have work to do when it comes to the compact states, which is absolutely critical. Any other members? LaHood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I want to congratulate the committee and you and the ranking member and the staff for putting together a very comprehensive report here today. And I would associate myself with the comments of Representative Johnson and Mr. Auchincloss as it relates to markets and creating customers around the world. I did have concerns initially with the provisions related to PNTR, but I appreciate the committee's work at the staff level and at the member level to work through that. Because I do have concerns about going down a protectionist path as it relates to certain sectors of our economy. particularly as it relates to agriculture. So I want to thank the committee for that. But I think what we've set forth here as a template for the committees of jurisdiction as we move into next year to work in a comprehensive way to fulfill what we set out to do on this select committee. And as we think about how do we win the strategic competition against the CCP, I think we do it on the economic front. And so we've put together a plan, and I look forward to working in a bipartisan way to implement that. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, I think what the CCP fears the most is bipartisan support against them. And we've put forth a plan and a roadmap here that I think can be successful, and I yield back.
I thank the gentleman. Do any other members wish to speak? Mr. Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, the report, I agree with most of the items on the report, but the report proposes to move the PRC to a new tariff column, and I just want to state for the record that I favor de-risking rather than decoupling. The inescapable economic reality is that the United States remains dangerously dependent on the CCP for critical minerals, rare earth elements, active pharmaceutical ingredients, increasingly clean energy technology. And it would seem to me decoupling from China's economy without eradicating those dependencies could do us more harm than good. It could leave us wide open to economic retaliation and coercion for which we're catastrophically unprepared. And so we as a country have not yet built the resilience in our domestic supply chains that we need to pursue the trade policy that we need. So my only cautionary note is that we should be tough on the CCP, but wisely so, and I'll leave it at that.
I thank the gentleman. Do any other members wish to speak? We will now proceed to a vote on the adoption of the report. There being no further debate on the Select Committee's report, the question now arises on adopting and favorably reporting the report to the House. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The report is adopted and will be favorably reported to the House. Okay. As provided by Committee Rule 5C, if any member wishes to file additional views, they may do so by submitting their additional views to the General Counsel and the hearing clerk no later than 5 p.m. on Friday, December 15th. Please reach out to the committee staff with any questions regarding submission. Without objection, staff is authorized to make technical and conforming changes to the report considered by the committee today. So ordered. With that, the Select Committee stands adjourned.
I went to Dr. Benatti and he went ahead and looked at my pictures. He told me, you have pain here, you have pain here. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'd been to others, but he was a doctor that didn't want to fillet my back open like a fish and do like open spine surgery because everybody else wanted to do that and I was not having it. The anesthesiologist who was working with me, I was like having a conversation with this guy, and then I was watching on the monitor as Dr. Benatti is fixing my back. I really felt like I was in good hands.
Benatti succeeds where others fail.
To a child, this is what conflict looks like. Children in Ukraine are caught in the crossfire of war, forced to flee their homes.
A steady stream of refugees has been coming across all day. It's bitterly cold.
Lacking clean water and sanitation, exposed to injury, hunger.
Exhausted and shell-shocked from what they've been through.
Every dollar you give can help bring a meal, a blanket, or simply hope to a child living in conflict. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. That's just 33 cents a day. We cannot forget the children in places like Syria, born in refugee camps, playing in refugee camps, thinking of the camps as home. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month. Your gift can help children like Ara in Afghanistan, where nearly 20 years of conflict have forced the people into extreme poverty. Weakened and unable to hold herself up, Ara was brought to a Save the Children center where she was diagnosed and treated for severe malnutrition. Every dollar helps. Please call or go online to GiveNowToSave.org today with your gift of $10 a month, just 33 cents a day. And thanks to special government grants that are available now, every dollar you give can multiply up to 10 times the impact. And when you use your credit card, you'll receive this special Save the Children tote bag to show you won't forget the children who are living their lives in conflict. Every war is a war against children. Please, give now.
You know you don't have to wear your PT gear anymore, right?
It's comfortable.
So how's civilian life treating you?
It's fine.
When I got out, I didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong because it felt like a failure. And then I realized, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. So I started talking to someone. Maybe you are fine, but if you're not, it's okay.
Thank you.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
I'm David Lam in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we are NTD News.
Welcome back. We're switching gears to a House Financial Services Committee hearing on strengthening energy sanctions on Russia, Iran, and Venezuela.
This hearing comes amid Russia's war on Ukraine, Iran's backing of Hamas, and Venezuela's mounting tensions with its neighbor Guyana.
Let's dive in.
Without objection, the chair is authorized to declare recess at any time. This hearing is entitled Restricting Rogue State Revenue, Strengthening Energy Sanctions on Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit extraneous materials to the chair for inclusion in the record. Opening statements. I now recognize myself for 5 minutes to give an opening statement. Thank you to our very impressive set of witnesses for being here today. You each possess tremendous expertise on global energy economics and sanctions, and we look forward to your insights. This hearing is entitled Restricting Rogue State Revenue, Strengthening Energy Sanctions on Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. When our subcommittee last convened on October 25th, in the wake of the horrific terrorist attack on Israel by Hamas, we examined the sanctions regime against the nation that stands behind and funded the barbarism, Iran. Our expert witnesses informed us of the sources of revenue of the Iranian state, most of which relate to the export of hydrocarbons and related products, and the means, illicit or authorized, by which Iran is able to access those funds. Today, as promised, we will expand that discussion. As it happens, not just Iran, but 2 other countries in the new axis of evil are petrostates, or something to that effect, Russia and Venezuela. These 3 countries' dependence on a single category of exports should provide the United States and our allies with substantial leverage over their economies, as the global market for these commodities is large and liquid. Moreover, the United States is one of the largest producers in the world, as are several of our historically close allies, notably Saudi Arabia, the world's largest swing producer. Unfortunately, as other committees of this Congress have explored, the Biden administration has suppressed or impeded North American hydrocarbon production, even as they have emptied out our emergency reserves for short-term political points. At the same time, the Biden administration has taken a consistently weak approach to enforcing the energy sanctions that would have the strongest economic impact on Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. Iran's ghost fleet continues to feed the Chinese industrial economy and its teapot refineries with little if effort to stop the flow by the United States. Russia's oil and gas, the most economically significant exports, have been either excluded from sanctions or subjected to a fake control scheme that either set the price cap above the market price for Urals or, when that was exceeded, exempted the exports. Finally, the administration's efforts to allow Venezuela to export more oil have been foiled by the Maduro administration's incompetence that has gutted their technological capabilities. Overall, this weak approach to energy sanctions has had the domestic political benefit of putting a material downward pressure on the price of oil, but with the negative consequence of enriching those enemy states while hurting domestic producers. Furthermore, unlike the United States, China depends on imported energy, so the ability to import deeply discounted gas and oil from all 3 countries has been a substantial benefit to our main strategic rival. Overall, the administration's approach to the global hydrocarbon market is backwards and strategically counterproductive. Iran has been emboldened to throw its weight around the Middle East from Yemen to Gaza, with it or its proxies directly attacking U.S. military sites and warships essentially without consequence. Continued oil revenues have allowed Russia's economy to weather the ostracism and wide-ranging financial actions taken in 2022, which were widely predicted to be catastrophic. They were not, and Moscow has been able to continue its unprovoked, brutal, and unjust war against Ukraine. Finally, the Biden administration waived energy sanctions against Venezuela purportedly in a naive hope that this communist dictatorship would allow a free election. Humiliatingly, this last week, the Venezuelan dictator threatened to annex the oil-rich provinces of its peaceful neighbor Guyana. It seems that in just 2 years, the Biden administration's wrong-headed energy policies may have helped start or sustain wars on 3 separate continents. That's quite a record. Instead, the United States and our allies should return to an approach of strongly reinforcing energy sanctions against these rogue regimes to weaken our enemies. At the same time, we should strengthen the United States by unleashing hydrocarbon production in free countries with high environmental and human rights standards like the United States, Canada, and our allies. We should be working with our friends to maintain low prices and high global supply, even while reducing the share that these rogue states provide. Today, we will explore what such an approach could look like by better understanding the energy economics and vulnerabilities of each of these countries so that we can legislate solutions and pressure them. With that, the chair now recognizes the ranking member of the subcommittee, the gentlewoman from Ohio, Ms. Beatty, for 4 minutes for an opening statement.
Good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing, and thank you to our witnesses for appearing here today to discuss, as we've already heard, the United States energy-related sanctions against Russia, Iran, and Venezuela, and the various methods of invading these sanctions. Under the Biden administration, the United States maintained the most extensive set of comprehensive sanctions against Iran, including those related to the illicit sale of Iranian oil, following Hamas's violent, unprecedented attack on Israel on October the 7th, which we all witnessed. The Treasury Department has issued multiple rounds of sanctions targeting those involved in the illicit finance networks that fund Hamas and Iran, its primary state sponsor. Contrary to the accusations leveled by Republicans, Secretary Yellen recently set the record straight that, quote, "We have not in any way relaxed our sanctions on Iranian oil." Against Russia, the United States has long maintained a robust sanctions program and has only doubled down since its unprovoked 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The Treasury Department, including the Office of Foreign Assets Control and the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, has engaged in a historic effort to implement sanctions, identify oligarchs' dirty money, and hamper financial support to Russian war machine, map networks of bad actors, and pursue sanction invaders. In addition, the Biden administration and Congress have worked closely to squeeze Russians' benefit from the sale of its oil, imposing a novel program, a price cap on seaborne oil exports in collaboration with other G7 countries and Australia. Secretary Yellen recently confirmed that the price cap on Russian oil has significantly reduced Russian revenue over the last 10 months while promoting stable energy markets. Lastly, in Venezuela, the United States has long imposed sanctions for criminal, anti-democratic, and corrupt activity. And the Biden administration has sought to leverage limited sanctions relief to incentivize a path towards freer and fairer elections. As we speak, our allies around the world are under attack, including Ukraine, which is set to run out of money in just a few weeks. Meanwhile, some of my colleagues across the aisle are holding aid to Israel and Ukraine hostage to push through their political agendas. Further underscoring the hypocrisy in this discussion about serious national security matters is the fact that the House GOP appropriation bills significantly cut the funding of the very agencies needed to implement Treasury sanctions and invasion detection. As we navigate various global crises and assets, the national security tools at our disposal, it is essential that we remain tough against our adversaries and leverage diplomacy to ensure our allies that they can trust us. By employing a multilateral approach to the United States national security, the Biden administration has demonstrated steady leadership in the face of global instability. In tandem, congressional Democrats have taken legislative steps to prevent sanction evasions and eliminate vulnerabilities in our financial system. But with all that said, I look forward to continuing this important work and working together. Thank you again to our witnesses, and I look forward to your testimony. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentlelady yields back. With that, we recognize the ranking member of the full committee, the gentlelady from California, Ms. Waters, for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Chairman Lukemeyer and Ranking Member Beatty. We're here today to discuss how we can strengthen energy-related sanctions on Iran, Russia, and Venezuela in order to prevent them from funneling funds to terrorism and other harmful activities. But Republicans have proposed to slash funding for the very agencies responsible for sanctions enforcement by 30%. We cannot expect to have robust sanctions enforcement without robust funding for the agencies in charge of enforcement. Moreover, we cannot expect to be tough on Russia if we walk away from Ukraine. Not only would that hand a major victory to Vladimir Putin, it would embolden China's ambitions to invade Taiwan. So I urge my Republican colleagues to pass President Biden's supplemental package, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. With that, we'll begin the testimony of our witnesses. We thank each of you for being here today. Each of you will be recognized for 5 minutes to give an oral presentation of your testimony. Without objection, each of your written statements will be made part of the record. And with that, we'll go to introductions. The Honorable Marshall Billingsley. Mr. Billingsley is a senior fellow at the Hudson Institute. Welcome. Ms. Clara Youngman is Chief of Staff at the United Against Nuclear Iran. Welcome. Dr. Anna Mikulski is a senior fellow at the Kleinman Center for Energy Policy at the University of Pennsylvania. Welcome. Mr. Ryan Berg is director of the Americas program at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. Welcome. And we welcome Mr. Adam Smith, who is a partner at Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher. Again, as I mentioned, be sure you get the microphones right close to you. Each of you are recognized for 5 minutes. With that, we'll begin with Mr. Billingsley. You're recognized for 5 minutes for your remarks.
Thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member. It's a pleasure to be here before your subcommittee to discuss this quite important set of issues. At the outset, I must say that autocratic regimes have for years tried to advance the narrative that sanctions, quote unquote, don't work for obvious reasons. And now some in Washington, D.C. are beginning to parrot their talking points. This is concerning. To say that sanctions don't or can't work would be incorrect, and it's an assertion that is completely at odds with the results we achieved during my tenure at the Department of the Treasury under President Trump. Sanctions do work when they are applied properly and enforced. Applied properly means, in my view, 5 things. First, as part of a broader strategy. Sanctions are not a substitute for strategy, but a complement. 2, not symbolic. Sanctions have an effect when the target has exposure to the global financial system, but conversely, when the target is unconnected, sanctions are little more than virtue signaling. They need to be applied comprehensively, without loopholes. Fourthly, they need to be accompanied by secondary sanctions to deter non-U.S. third parties who otherwise might be inclined to continue transacting with a sanctioned entity. And then finally, they have to be enforced through a mix of both civil and criminal penalties. As I mentioned under President Trump, all 5 of these criteria were met by our Iran and Venezuela efforts. I would parenthetically add our North Korea program as well.
Anyone who's ever sold a home will tell you it's really hard. And it's one of the biggest financial decisions you'll ever make. That's why who you work with matters. Together with HomeLight, we take care of every detail.
Freedom is not free, and neither is the truth. In order to bring you the facts, our reporters are out there on the front lines getting the true story.
Some of them served 10 years of prison in China. We've been censored on social media. Our Hong Kong printing offices were set on fire, and we've been repeatedly attacked by the Chinese Communist Party. But no matter what, we believe that you deserve the truth, and so we'll continue to bring the truth to life. Head on over to getepic.com and try honest journalism that is based in truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
Hi, I'm Susan Lucci. I never thought about heart disease until I had my own heart event. I received 2 stents in my arteries, stents developed through research funded by the American Heart Association. Those stents saved my life. I have met so many survivors. Each of them tells a story that can be so helpful to women out there.
Everything was pretty good. It was a very happy life. I was given the diagnosis that I had peripartum cardiomyopathy, which is basically a pregnancy-induced heart failure. They told me my only chance was a heart transplant.
And the American Heart Association helped make that possible. Their research helped save me.
I think everyone should support the American Heart Association. Call now or go to helpheart.org. For only $19 a month, just 63 cents a day, you can help fund the next medical breakthrough. Get the next person trained in CPR, the next hospital certified in high-quality cardiovascular care. You can be part of that very important work that the American Heart Association is doing to save lives everywhere. Give $19 a month with your credit card, and we'll send you this special t-shirt that you can wear to show that you are helping save lives.
I'm grateful for just every day that I get with my children. I am very thankful for the American Heart Association.
Heart disease is America's #1 killer, and your support now can help save your life or the life of someone you love. Listen to your heart. The only reason I'm here today is because I did. So please call the number on your screen or go to helpheart.org now. Join me as a monthly donor today and help save even more lives.
I'm in the bedroom.
Okay.
Oh, shit. It's not here.
What?
The gun's not here.
What do you mean? Where is it?
Cameron, are you in there? Open the door. Cam! Come on, Cam.
And we are tuned into a House Financial Services Committee hearing on strengthening energy sanctions on Russia, Iran, and Venezuela.
This hearing comes amid Russia's war on Ukraine, Iran's backing of Hamas, and Venezuela's mounting tensions with its neighbor Guyana.
Let's tune in.
The effect on the energy-related revenue streams of the mullahs in Tehran and the murderous kleptocrat regime in Caracas was significant. Iranian crude oil production collapsed from 3.8 million barrels a day in 2018 when we started, down to 1.8 million by the time we left office. And their exports similarly crashed due to our efforts. They were exporting less than 400,000 barrels a day, and they had a huge number of cargo ships serving as floating storage because secondary sanctions were effectively deterring a number of countries, such as India and China, from buying. The corresponding effect on the Iranian regime's finances was equally dramatic. Iran's GDP shrank by 5% in 2018 and another 10% year over year in 2019. Inflation spiked, going up 10% to approximately 35% during this time frame. And the Iranian currency hit all-time lows. As its economy shrank and oil and tax revenues dried up, the regime found that its own budget was in disarray, its military spending took a huge hit, and although Qasem Soleimani, the head of the Quds Force at the time, fought aggressively to protect his terror financing, he too was forced to take major cuts. In fact, to make ends meet, the Quds Force resorted to its own oil smuggling efforts in collaboration with Hezbollah and Russia, and we disrupted a wide number of these schemes through law enforcement, intelligence, and Treasury action. The effect on Iran's terror network was notable. Although the best funded of Iran's proxies by far, Hassan Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, was forced to make major cutbacks in stipends for his members, and he repeatedly complained about us at the Treasury. He even started fundraising telethons in an effort to make up the losses in Iranian payments. In Venezuela, we saw a very similar pattern. Once we designated the central bank and all of the other major financial institutions and applied secondary sanctions to its oil trade, Venezuela's crude oil output dropped from 2.3 million barrels a day to just around 400,000 by the end of the Trump administration. Hyperinflation was rampant, and in 2018, the Venezuelan currency, the bolivar, became the least valued currency in circulation based on exchange rates. These results speak for themselves. They prove that sanctions can significantly impair the revenue of hostile energy-producing regimes, provided that the 5 principles I enumerated are followed. But here we are at the end of 2023. Iran's oil production has bounced back to a 5-year high, to between 3.1 and 3.3 million barrels a day. They're exporting 4 times as much crude and condensate today than they were when we left office. Hassan Nasrallah is no longer needing to conduct telethons. The Houthis are engaged in unprecedented ballistic cruise and drone strikes against both Israel and shipping in the Red Sea. Iranian-backed militias have conducted 92 attacks on U.S. servicemen in Iraq and Syria since October 17th, and we saw what an emboldened Hamas did on October 7th. In Venezuela, crude oil production has nearly doubled, up to a record high over the summer, nearly 800,000 barrels a day. And the Biden administration has now waived most of our energy sanctions, but what Maduro has decided to do, and thanks for that, is mass troops on the border of Guyana, threatening forcible annexation of the oil and mineral-rich Essequibo region. I also have a fair amount to comment on with regard to the Russia sanctions program. Suffice to say that I feel it has been largely ineffective because, again, it does not include the 5 criteria that I enumerated, but I would be happy to address that in the questions and answers. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ranking Member.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Billingsley. Dr. Youngman, you're up next. Recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman, Ranking Member, and members of the subcommittee, I appreciate the opportunity to discuss the administration's strategy for enforcing sanctions against Iran, focusing on the oil sector and its implications for national security, global oil markets, and international financial stability. Iran's oil sector is its major economic pillar, with exports representing the overwhelming majority of government revenues. Because the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, a U.S. designated foreign terrorist organization, controls the oil industry, oil exports finance Iran's military and terrorist operations, with over $20 billion funneled into such activities since 2012. U.S. sanctions, when stringently enforced, have effectively countered Iran's nuclear ambitions and limited its funding of terror. The maximum pressure campaign from 2017 to 2021 significantly reduced Iran's oil exports, demonstrating the potency of robust sanctions. However, due to diminished sanctions enforcement, Iran has accumulated north of $80 billion in oil revenues since 2021, particularly through exports to China. This leniency has not only altered the global oil market dynamics, but also weakened the perceived effectiveness of sanctions. Iran uses a ghost fleet of more than 300 foreign-owned and foreign-flagged oil tankers to ship hundreds of millions of barrels of Iranian oil, skirting U.S. energy sanctions and exploiting regulatory loopholes. Most of these vessels are not sanctioned by the U.S. and operate clandestinely. Further, Panama in particular has facilitated Iran's oil sanctions evasion by flagging almost half of the Ghost Fleet vessels, in spite of over 65 letters from United Against Nuclear Iran, providing concrete evidence that those ships are carrying Iranian oil. Moving forward, a comprehensive strategy is crucial. This includes increasing sanctions enforcement, focusing on Iran's Ghost Fleet, implementing economic and regulatory pressure in China, using carrots and sticks to encourage Panama's cooperation, and enhancing global maritime surveillance. Thank you again for this opportunity. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Youngman. Ms. Mikulski, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is on the Hill today to plead for military aid, we are about to discuss what's possibly second to that aid in pushing back against Putin. Economic sanctions, where properly applied and enforced, can be a useful tool of influence. Having lived in communist Poland under President Reagan's sanctions in the 80s, I should know. Sanctions generally prove most effective before they are applied. Once applied, the immediate effectiveness can be mitigated by various factors such as domestic policies, economic fluctuations, or geopolitical conditions. Absence of broad multilateral application or enforcement can further undermine their effectiveness. As such, even though sanctions are usually applied with the hope to curb promptly an adverse behavior, actual realization of their objective requires a more protracted timeline. For petrostates, such as Russia, Venezuela, or Iran, sanctions targeting their energy exports have traditionally been employed with the objective of depriving these nations of revenues, thereby constraining their military capabilities and eroding the popularity of their governments. Admittedly, sanctions on Russian energy flows imposed after the 2022 invasion of Ukraine have produced mixed results. The reasons are complex. To begin, Russia was able to prepare, particularly after very limited sanctions were imposed on Russia after 2014 invasion on Ukraine. The country began to form more self-reliant financial system, domestic production, and self-sufficiency were the key. Devaluating ruble to enhance competitiveness and aid budget was also one of the major things Russia has focused on, as foreign currency from oil and gas have translated into greater value in the domestic context. Partnerships with China and OPEC have been also very high on Russia's agenda. Secondly, sanctions imposed after 2022 invasion, though more expansive, have not been well enforced. In particular, despite cap on crude oil prices introduced by G7 countries over a year ago, Russia has been able to sell its crude above the price thanks to widespread evasion and a shadow fleet of tankers it has built. At time, lower prices of oil have also yielded the cap inadequate. This does not mean, however, there are no signs of sanctions working their way through Russian economy. For example, the valuation of ruble has kept Russian revenue high and rising, but only if expressed in rubles. Translated to American dollars, Russian federal revenues are falling. In addition, the share of Russian revenues from oil and gas activity is also falling to be now in around the 30%, 35%. Also, the financial strategy of relying on taxation of energy production instead of taxation of exports is going to have negative implications for Russia's energy sector. While this approach may help finance state coffers, the heavy taxation will limit the ability of Russian energy companies to grow and invest. The lack of cutting-edge technology and the phenomenon of brain drain is likely to impact the efficiency, quality, and innovation of Russia's energy sector in the long term. As of now, however, much also of Russian energy flows have not been sanctions. This includes natural gas, particularly liquefied natural gas, where Russian sales doubled when compared to 2021. And I'm talking here about sanctions from our allies, in particular the EU, where half of these LNG exports have been going. Russia is also supplying nuclear fuel and building and financing nuclear power plants all over the world, which includes 2 NATO countries, Hungary and Turkey. As we consider existing and future options, we need to remember that the success of sanctions is usually not immediate and that imposition of tough measures is not enough unless robust and strict enforcement follows. The lack of enforcement not only diminishes the intended impact of the sanctions on reducing Russian capability to support their ongoing aggression in Ukraine, it also poses a risk to the long-term efficacy of a broader system today and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Burt, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Chairman, Ranking Member, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning on this very important topic. Under the Biden administration, the United States has embarked on a perilous dance with the dictator in Caracas. Absent a policy reboot, I worry that the next step in this caper with Nicolas Maduro could be strategic insolvency against an adversarial regime in our shared neighborhood. Whereas the previous administration built a significant sanctions architecture on the Maduro regime to stymie its myriad human rights abuses and unfathomable corruption, the Biden administration has presided over a significant softening of Venezuela's sanctions. This is a major test of the administration's ability to reach what has been a bipartisan goal: freer and fairer presidential elections in Venezuela on a much longer road to full redemocratization. After a skinny set of accords recently signed in Barbados, the Biden administration gambled, lifting oil, gas, minerals, and secondary bond trading sanctions on the regime. The sanctions relief, originally provided for 6 months and subject to renewal in April 2024, could be worth as much as $10 billion in revenue for Maduro, representing about 1/10 of Venezuela's current GDP. 7 weeks in, there is nary a commitment in the agreements that the regime has not managed to contravene. The litany of violations is worth considering when weighing the merits of the regime's recent sanctions relief. The regime censored, harassed, and intimidated journalists covering the opposition's recent primary. It cut the internet during the transmission of poll results for the opposition's recent primary. On the day of the primary, multiple polling stations reported shots fired, intimidation by regime thugs, and ballot boxes stolen. After opposition leader Maria Corina Machado emerged victorious, the regime's attorney general launched an investigation into the primary process, labeling it, quote, a mega fraud. Through its control of the Supreme Court, the Maduro regime suspended the results of the opposition's primary, declaring them null and void. As part of the investigation, the Maduro regime has demanded some of the primary organizers to appear before local prosecutors. As part of its investigation, the regime has demanded information on those who participated in a bid to compromise the identities of nearly 2.5 million people, potentially exposing them to retribution. As the ink was drying on the Barbados Accords, the regime abducted and now holds another American political prisoner, Savoy Wright. No unjustly detained Americans have been released since the Barbados Accord.
And this concludes our coverage of the House Financial Services Committee's hearing on strengthening energy sanctions on Russia, Iran, and Venezuela.
If you have any news tips or feedback for the show, please feel free to email us at news.today@ntd.com.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shin-Yun.
I'd like to say this is the first time, but there have been others.
How many?
Who can keep track?
You think this is a joke?
Darling, we need answers, and you're gonna give them to us.
Tell us again.
My car broke down. I brought it here.
I got stuck paying an expensive repair bill.
So it's true.
How much, darling?
$2,300. But
$2,300.
Well, what was I supposed to do? My transmission was shot.
You pick up your phone and you call CarShield before the car breaks down.
Plans through CarShield cover up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car.
That's right. A plan through CarShield could save you on some criminally high auto repairs, especially if your car is out of warranty. So, call CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company, before a breakdown and save yourself from getting stuck in car repair jail.
Let me guess. You hate saving money.
Who hates saving money?
Apparently you do.
All you had to do was call CarShield. And you could have protected yourself against expensive repairs.
Yeah, and then my price will go up the minute I file a claim.
Shut up! CarShield has the price locked in.
For as long as you cover your car.
I guess I should have called CarShield?
It's about time you said something that made sense.
Now you know what you need to do next time.
Bet he'll call CarShield now.
So can I go? Or...
Don't get handcuffed paying expensive auto repairs. Call now and get the CarShield guarantee. Your price will never go up and your coverage will never go down as long as you cover your car. In just minutes, you could have a plan that covers up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car. Don't wait until it's too late. Get CarShield's best coverage yet. Call 800-965-0729. 800-965-0729. 800-965-0729.
I don't think that many kids in my son's school even do it.
He makes fun of his friend who vapes.
He would never try it.
She's into soccer. She's on the honor roll. She's just not the type.
No way.
No way. No way.
No way, my kid would never vape.
Get your head out of the cloud. Today, nearly 8,000 kids will start vaping. Maybe even yours. Learn about the dangers at talkaboutvaping.org.
I'm Kelly Wright in New York City, and we are NTD News.
Welcome to NTD News Today.
Here are today's top stories.
The UN is set to vote on a ceasefire today in the Israel-Hamas war. This as rebels in Yemen attack yet another ship in the Red Sea. We bring you an update on the conflicts in the Middle East.
A formal impeachment inquiry vote into President Biden is coming this week. House Speaker Mike Johnson explains why he feels it's necessary.
Will the president of Harvard keep her job? She drew condemnation for her testimony on anti-Semitism, but it doesn't look like she'll meet the same fate as the head of UPenn.
Former Representative George Santos appeared in federal court today. He's negotiating with federal prosecutors in hopes of reaching a plea deal.
Did COVID policy result in unnecessary deaths? House lawmakers request a top aide for former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo sit for an interview. What they hope to find out.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is on Capitol Hill asking for more U.S. aid. An expert weighs in on the interplay between America's ability to secure its own border and its ability to support other countries.
This is NTD News Today, live from our NTD Global Headquarters. Here are Stephania Cox and Chris Beers.
The full House will be voting on whether to formalize the impeachment inquiry into President Biden.
House Speaker Mike Johnson promising it will happen this week.
We have no choice. To fulfill our constitutional responsibility, we have to take the next step. We're not making a political decision. It's not. It's a legal decision. So people have feelings about it one way or the other. We can't prejudge the outcome. The Constitution does not permit us to do so. We have to follow the truth where it takes us, and that is exactly what we're going to do.
House Republicans will continue to investigate the Biden family's business dealings. They will also probe Biden's claims about his involvement in the dealings.
Johnson says the evidence mounting against President Biden cannot be ignored, and the White House has been stonewalling the investigation.
The House Speaker promises to undertake the impeachment inquiry methodically and transparently.
The House GOP says they will go to court if it's necessary to enforce subpoenas.
The House Rules Committee is already taking up the vote to decide whether to formalize Biden's impeachment inquiry.
They're holding a hearing now on the procedure.
The resolution would direct 3 key House committees to hold hearings and subpoena witnesses. There are the House Judiciary, Ways and Means, and Oversight Committees.
It is a deeply sad day and is an occasion I do not relish, nor I'm sure do any of my colleagues in the room. Nonetheless, this is a weighty responsibility, one that we all take very seriously, and we must do our duty for ourselves, for the institution, and for the nation. We are here to determine a process, not an outcome. We are here to assert our Article 1 responsibilities, not to act as judge or jury. And we are here fundamentally to chart a path forward that unveils the facts to the public.
Expelled Republican George Santos is talking with federal prosecutors about a plea deal.
The former New York congressman appeared in court today on Long Island for a status conference. Santos is facing 23 federal charges that include misusing campaign funds and lying about his finances on House disclosure reports. He's pleaded not guilty.
Court records show prosecutors want to ask for another status conference in a month so they could try to strike a deal with the ousted congressman. As of now, Santos is scheduled for trial in September of next year, although prosecutors say they may want to move the date earlier to May or June.
Santos also told the New York City Interviewer on Sunday he was open to a plea deal. He said he wanted to work to avoid going to jail. Special Counsel Jack Smith is asking the Supreme Court to weigh in on his January 6th case against former President Trump. He wants to skip Trump's appeal process over presidential immunity to try and keep the March 4th trial date on track. Smith wants the High Court to decide if Trump is immune to alleged crimes committed while in office. District Judge Tanya Chutkin ruled Trump is not immune from federal prosecution. Trump asked a federal appeals court in Washington to reverse her ruling. The Supreme Court says it will expedite Smith's request. It's given Trump until next Wednesday week to respond. Trump says racing to the Supreme Court is a Hail Mary move by Smith. The trial in March starts a day before Republicans' Super Tuesday primary elections in over a dozen states. In a court filing yesterday, Smith revealed he plans to use some of Trump's cell phone data from his time in office as evidence in the case. The special counsel intends to call a witness who extracted and reviewed the data. What can the U.S. do to counter communism in China? House lawmakers this morning unveiled a plan to handle competition from the CCP. Joining us live to discuss is Adam Savit, director of the China Initiative at the America First Policy Institute. Adam, this report will soon be published. What strategies can we expect to see?
Well, we can expect strategies that take a comprehensive look and a comprehensive approach to the economic and trade policies that the United States has been adhering to for 30 or 40 years now, which really have led to economic aggression on the part of the CCP that have left us very vulnerable. Our supply chains, as well as the hollowing out of our domestic industry and our workers. Some of the highlights of this include a focus on outbound investment, which means American individuals or organizations investing in critical sectors in China that actually help their defense industries. But it also has some positive features in it as well, which is building out talent and research capabilities and industries here in the United States that will allow us to compete more closely with the CCP.
And Adam, what would make these strategic approaches successful in your eyes in this report?
Well, you know, I think the big highlight that's coming to the fore and the most important aspect of this actually is the outbound investment. Now, there was a executive order put forth by the Biden administration this year that will go into effect next year that does have a limited coverage on key technological industries such as AI, quantum computing, semiconductor chips, et cetera. But that needs to be expanded and it needs to be put into law. Also, other critical elements such as critical minerals, which also go into our defense supply chains, also pharmaceuticals, which really came to the fore, of course, during COVID, need to be decoupled from China, they need to be protected to protect American citizens.
Can you talk to us a bit more about why this report, why these approaches are necessary in the first place?
They're necessary because our relationship, our adversarial relationship with China is unique. Now, if we look back at the last major adversary geopolitically, of course, was the Soviet Union. Now, they were a major military threat. Their military buildup was real. They were a diplomatic threat in the way that they approached the developing world and competed with us in that arena. But they were never an economic threat in the way that China is. And that's because they were sort of cordoned off in their own communist world, in their own sphere, and then we were having free trade with the free world outside of their sphere, as opposed to the fact that China is directly embedded in our supply chains. We are mutually dependent on China. Their success is dependent on our consumer and investment, and then our success is dependent on their supply chains. And this is completely unhealthy. We need to decouple. We can't have our primary adversary in this world tied in this way into our economy. And that's why the Select Committee is correct in highlighting this comprehensive economic and trade report. This is where we need to begin to set the groundwork for legislation with a broad bipartisan consensus where we can get real trade, real change done.
Now, Adam, this committee members congratulated one another during this hearing. It's a rarity in Congress to see this kind of bipartisan cooperation. How crucial is bipartisan cooperation when it comes to successfully countering the CCP?
I think it's absolutely crucial, and in this case, it really is organic, and the bipartisan nature really is real in a way that, in some other situations it may be forced. But, I think this really transcends the traditional concepts of left and right. For example, it's always been perceived as a left-wing issue to protect, let's say, workers' rights and industrial development in the United States, and more of a right-wing issue to support defense priorities and a more hawkish foreign policy. But for example, these two come together on the subject of reshoring our industrial capacity, our defense supply chains, which bring back jobs to the United States, bolster domestic industries in those critical spheres, and at the same time bolster our defense and our deterrence. So really this is a bipartisan effort. And just to highlight it, my organization, AFPI, has endorsed this report, and so has the United Steelworkers of America. Now, that's a coalition that you could not envision 5 to 10 years ago, but that is a real coalition that is based on true mutual interest.
All right, Adam Savit, Director of the China Initiative at the America First Policy Institute. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
The House Freedom Caucus has elected Representative Bob Good of Virginia to be its next chairman, according to several media reports. While Good is a staunch conservative, his election isn't without some controversy. He was one of the 8 Republicans who voted to oust Kevin McCarthy as Speaker earlier this year.
He has also faced some skepticism among Republicans for endorsing Florida Governor Ron DeSantis over Donald Trump for the 2024 presidential primary. Good was first elected to Congress in 2020. GOP presidential hopeful Nikki Haley is poised to get another endorsement from New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu tonight at a rally in Manchester. It's not set in stone, but comes from the Washington Post, citing an anonymous source. The decision could potentially boost Haley's position as former President Trump's alternative.
Sununu is known as a critic of Trump. He has stated that he's looking to endorse one of the Republican governors running in the presidential race, with Haley, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie being his candidate choices.
He'll campaign for his pick until the New Hampshire primary on January 23rd. Sununu himself isn't seeking a 5th term. Former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is under renewed fire for his COVID nursing home policies. Members of the House Select Subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic are pushing for more information. The lawmakers requested the former governor's aide, Melissa DeRosa, sit for an interview.
They've also asked her to provide documents related to New York's COVID-19 nursing home order. The committee wants to know more about DeRosa's role.
The March 25th, 2020 order forced nursing homes to accept residents who had tested positive for COVID-19. Critics say more than 15,000 nursing home patients died as a result.
New York State officials have long denied any wrongdoing. A 2020 New York Department of Health report blamed staff and visitors.
Now, an update on the conflicts in the Middle East.
First, Palestinian Americans are reportedly allowed to travel from the West Bank into Israel again. That's for the first time since the October 7th attacks by Hamas.
Axios reports that Israel is allowing Palestinian Americans to cross into Israel due to pressure from the U.S.
The White House reportedly threatened it would otherwise suspend Israel's suspension of the U.S. visa waiver program. The program allows citizens from certain countries to travel to the U.S. for 90 days without obtaining a visa.
After the October 7th attacks, Israel barred people from the West Bank to cross the border due to security concerns.
And the United Nations is set to vote on an immediate humanitarian ceasefire today. Arab and Islamic nations called for an emergency session of the 193-member General Assembly. That's after the U.S. vetoed a resolution in the Security Council on Friday that demanded a humanitarian ceasefire.
Unlike Security Council resolutions, General Assembly resolutions are not legally binding. It would only send a strong message, with either outcome potentially reflecting world opinion. Terrorists are attacking a Norwegian tanker in the Red Sea. Houthi rebels in Yemen fired rockets at a commercial tanker belonging to a Norwegian company. The Iran-aligned group said today that they attacked in protest against Israel's bombardment of Gaza.
The rocket caused a fire on the tanker, but no casualties were reported. A U.S. official said the tanker was able to continue moving out hours after the attack.
Houthis today vowed to continue blocking ships heading to Israeli ports. That's until Israel allows the entry of food and medical aid into the Gaza Strip.
Harvard President Claudine Gay will keep her job. The head of the Ivy League school drew condemnation for her comments last week at a congressional hearing on anti-Semitism. Gay and 2 other university presidents struggled to answer questions about anti-Semitism on campus. Their academic responses provoked backlash from Republican opponents.
Alumni and donors say they failed to stand up for Jewish students. A line of questioning asked the university heads if calling for the genocide of Jews violates the university's code of conduct.
At the hearing, Gay said it depended on the context. Some lawmakers and donors have called for Gay to step down.
University of Pennsylvania President Liz McGill resigned on Saturday. The Harvard Corporation announced today that Gay will remain in office. But the Harvard president is facing another challenge, an accusation of plagiarism. Senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, Christopher Rufo, posted the accusation yesterday on X.
He says Gay plagiarized multiple parts of her PhD thesis. Rufo points to a 1997 paper by Gay.
He alleges that she copied an entire paragraph nearly verbatim from a 1990 paper. Rufo says a passage from scholar Carol Swain's 1995 book, Black Faces, Black Interests, was also plagiarized.
In a statement published by the New York Times, the Harvard board said it was aware of allegations surrounding President Gay's academic writings involving 3 articles. The board said it initiated an independent review and found no violation of Harvard's standards for research misconduct.
However, the board said President Gay requested 4 corrections in 2 articles to insert citations and quotation marks that were omitted from original publications. It isn't clear if the Harvard board is referring to the same instances described by Christopher Rufo. Coming up, the House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed investment management companies Vanguard and Arjuna Capital.
From Medicare workers to 911 operators to video editors. Which is the most stressful job of the year? We have more from a new survey in just a moment here on NTD News Today.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Your solution is at plexidermtrial.com or call the number on your screen.
We all know that words have power. They set things in motion
and make us happy or sad.
But there's one word that stands out because when people say it, lives are changed. It's not a big word.
It's itsy bitsy.
It's only 3 little letters. But when you say it,
the life of a kid like me can be changed.
So, what is this special word?
It may surprise you.
It's yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes to becoming a monthly supporter of Shriners Hospitals for Children. That's right. Your monthly support allows the doctors and nurses at Shriners Hospitals for Children to give the most amazing care anywhere and change the lives of kids like me. And me.
And me.
Because people like you have said yes. Now I can play football. And I can play catch.
And I can walk.
So what do you say? Will you say yes right now? It's so easy. All you have to do is pick up the phone or go to loveshriners.org right now and say yes. When you say yes to giving just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day, we'll send you this adorable Love to the Rescue blanket as a reminder of all the kids you're helping every day. My life is filled with possibility because of the monthly support of people just like you who called the number on your screen and said yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Your yes is making a difference in my life and the lives of so many other kids like me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for giving.
Please call or go online now If operators are busy, call again or go to loveshriners.org to say yes right away.
Thank you for staying with us. Joining us now is NTD Business host Don Ma to discuss an investigation launched yesterday into a left-leaning media watchdog group.
Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey is probing Media Matters for America. He says the group used fraud to bully advertisers into pulling out of X. Don, what is happening here?
All right, so if you remember a few weeks ago, I talked to you guys about Media Matters, and if you remember, they did a report that showed ads from advertisers on social media platform X appearing next to anti-Semitic posts. They showed a couple of screenshots, and then later X actually accused this group of falsifying that report and saying that they misrepresented the actual day-to-day user experience. And so here's what the Missouri Attorney General said. First of all, Bailey says that X, he believes, is the last free speech platform in America. And he has reason to believe that the outlet, the group rather, may have engaged in unlawful business practices, so Media Matters. Specifically that the firm deceptively manipulated the algorithm on X, which have caused advertisers to pull ads from the platform, pulling their support with that. And what he says this amounts to is actually harming free speech because, as we all know, X needs ads to survive in part. So in a letter yesterday, Bailey said, the lawsuit alleges that Media Matters falsely suggested that fringe and extreme content regularly appears on next to ads when it seems like the opposite may actually be true. So this is just a brief general overview of what this investigation is looking at here.
And what's been the reaction to this investigation so far, Don?
Well, Elon Musk said in reaction to this investigation that he's actually glad to hear it. He's glad potentially that this investigation is going through. And he says that, and now I'm quoting him, that Media Matters is an evil propaganda machine. That's what he's saying. And he's also bringing his own lawsuit as well against Media Matters. According to Musk, they're actually suing the outlet in every country that it operates in. And he even said that they're going to pursue anyone that's also funding the organization, Media Matters, and he reiterated those 2 points a couple of times. So he really means that. And he even said as far as saying that Media Matters can go to heck. Of course, he didn't use the word heck. So, I mean, it seems to me that it's no surprise that Elon Musk is glad to hear this investigation is going through, seeing that seems like he doesn't have a very positive view on this media group.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that pans out. Any other updates from the business world, Don?
Yeah, sure. Just a few. The House Judiciary Committee has subpoenaed investment management companies Vanguard and Arjuna Capital. The subpoena concerns the committee's investigation into whether the companies violated U.S. laws. For example, the panel is probing whether the company's ESG investing and as well as participation in coalitions like Climate Action 100+, whether that breaks antitrust rules. And a Vanguard spokesperson told the Epoch Times in an emailed statement that the company is committed to working constructively with lawmakers, and as well as spokesperson for Arjuna said that it fully intends to comply with the subpoena. And as well, Google was dealt a major blow yesterday in an antitrust lawsuit brought by developer Epic Games. A federal court jury said Monday that Google's App Store marketplace is an illegal monopoly. Now, it's up to a federal judge to decide what steps Google must take next to correct its behavior in its App Store. The judge said he's going to hold hearings on the issue in January. Google said it would challenge the landmark verdict, but if the ruling holds, it could lead to sweeping changes to the company's App Store business. And finally, the EU is going to hash out details on new artificial intelligence rules. This is according to Reuters, citing sources familiar with the matter. Government officials and aides of lawmakers will hammer out specific details, for example, the scope of the AI laws, starting today. They're going to clarify the legal basis for how governments can use AI in biometric surveillance and how to regulate major AI systems, such as ChatGPT. And the AI Act is expected to take effect in 2026.
All right, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
And next up, more than half of the nation's employees say they're stressed at work.
But a new survey finds that some jobs are more draining than others. The 2023 report from Mental Health America's Mind the Workplace listed the top 10 most stressful jobs this year. It includes judges, healthcare workers, like nurses and doctors, general phone and 911 operators, film and video editors, and retail sales supervisors. The job with the highest stress score, urologist.
Workers in unhealthy work environments reported higher rates of psychological distress that lead to mental health concerns. Last year, 81% of workers reported that workplace stress affects their mental health. That's up a bit from 2021. About 3/4 of workers said workplace stress affects their relationships. And Disney World in Florida says it will no longer allow third-party tours. 8 guide businesses tell the Washington Post they've received trespassing notices. In a statement to the paper, Disney says third-party commercial activities have been on the rise. It claims they diminish the experience of other guests and impede park operations. Third-party tours are usually cheaper than official ones, prompting speculation that they undercut park profits. At least one guide says she's allowed to appeal in a year. The ban applies to all Disney World properties, but doesn't seem to affect Disneyland in California at this time.
Another round of layoffs for popular toy maker Hasbro is slashing nearly 20% of its workforce amid an ongoing slump in sales. The company's CEO announced layoffs for 1,100 workers in a Monday memo to employees. The cuts are on top of roughly 800 jobs eliminated earlier this year. Some employees will find out this week whether their job has been eliminated, while the rest of the layoffs will happen over the next 6 months. Hasbro is known for making toys like Nerf, Transformers, and Play-Doh. Company shares fell more than 4% in after-hours trading on Monday. 10 teenagers suspected of a dozen Washington, D.C. carjackings have been arrested. There have been more than 900 carjackings in D.C. so far this year.
We need to have a serious response to show people that this is not a game. This is the real world. There will be real-world consequences.
The teens are in 2 separate alleged crime rings. They're accused of holding victims at gunpoint before stealing their vehicles. They're believed to be responsible for at least a dozen carjackings or attempted ones.
The federal maximum sentence for carjacking is 15 years in prison. The mandatory minimum sentence for brandishing a firearm during a violent crime is 7 years.
And we're learning about an incredible rescue in California. A hiker became trapped underneath a massive boulder for 7 hours. This was last Tuesday in the Inyo Mountains in the eastern part of the state. Inyo County's search and rescue team detailed what happened in a Facebook post. Members say about a dozen people participated in the rescue by air and by ground.
The hiker's legs were pinned under a boulder that weighed between 6,000 and 10,000 pounds. Rescuers used ropes and pulleys to shift the boulder enough to free the hiker. A Navy medic rappelled from a helicopter to the scene, and the injured hiker and medic were lifted into the helicopter.
The hiker was then flown to Fresno for treatment.
The SpaceX launch of a military space plane called X-37B is on hold for now. The launch was supposed to take place last night from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, but a technical issue got in the way. SpaceX says it will try to launch the robotic spacecraft today, but delays are still possible. This next launch will mark its 7th experimental mission. The spacecraft debuted in 2018, and it has already spent more than 3,700 days in space during its 6 previous missions. X-37B is shrouded in mystery with many of its tasks classified, but the military has revealed some details. It says during the 6th mission, the spaceplane carried experimental technology designed by the U.S. Navy to convert solar energy and send it back to the ground.
Coming up, multiple Biden administration officials comment on the disappearance of a Russian opposition leader. The Kremlin is now responding to the comments.
And Bosnia is battling air pollution. Images from Sarajevo this week show thick blankets of smog hiding the city's skyline. We'll have the details soon when we return.
The highest art is beautiful, breathtaking, timeless, and moving. Experience art with 5,000 years of history, inspired by the divine. Experience Shenyun.
Anyone who's ever sold a home can tell you it is really hard. That's why who you work with matters. Together with Homelight, we've helped thousands of people sell faster and for the best price.
One in 5 children worldwide are faced with the reality of living without food. No family dinners, no special treats, no full bellies. All around the world, parents are struggling to feed their children. Toddlers are suffering from acute malnutrition, which stunts their growth. Kids are forced to drop out of school so they can help support their families. COVID, conflict, inflation, and climate have ignited the worst famine in our lifetime. And we're fed up. Fed up with the fact that hunger robs children of their childhood. Fed up with the lack of progress. Fed up with the injustice. Help us brighten the lives of children all over the world by visiting getfedupnow.org. For as little as $10 a month, you can join Save the Children as we support children and families in desperate need of our help. Now is the time to get fed up and give back. When you join the cause, your $10 monthly donation can help communities in need of life-saving treatments and nutrients. Prevent children from dropping out of school. Support our work with communities and governments to help children go from short-term surviving to long-term thriving. And now, thanks to special government grants, every dollar you give before December 31st can multiply up to 10 times the impact. That means more food, water, medicine, and help for kids around the world. You'll also receive a free tote bag to share your support for children in need. Childhood without food is unimaginable. Get fed up. Call us now or visit getfedupnow.org today.
Got a new house.
Place that I call home.
I'm Melina Weiskup on Capitol Hill, and we are NTD.
Welcome back. And now for a shift in gears, we have some short headlines from Poland, Spain, and other European countries. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky met with the chief of the International Monetary Fund yesterday.
This comes as the fund's executive board approved a $900 million payout from the country's multi-billion-dollar loan program.
The IMF congratulated Zelensky on the positive economic growth amid the war and pledged continued support for Ukraine. Poland's newly appointed prime minister pledges his support for Ukraine. Donald Tusk today said his country will demand the full mobilization of the West to help Ukraine.
He also told Parliament Poland would be a loyal ally of the United States. Poland's parliament backed Tusk to become prime minister on Monday.
We must speak loudly and firmly and with one voice about Ukraine. Listen, This is also an issue that must unite us because today we see President Zelensky trying to convince the world again what the game is really about, that the war, that Russia's attack on Ukraine is an attack on all of us.
The U.S. is on track to ban imports of Russian uranium. The House of Representatives on Monday passed a related bill. That's as lawmakers seek to add pressure on Moscow for its war on Ukraine.
The measure has waivers in case of supply concerns for domestic reactors. The bill must now pass the Senate and be signed by President Biden before becoming law.
It's unclear whether there will be enough time in the Senate to schedule for a vote this year. Russia today condemned comments made by the U.S. about a jailed Russian opposition leader.
On Monday, the State Department said the U.S. is deeply concerned for Alexei Navalny's well-being. Navalny has been serving a 19-year term on charges of extremism in a maximum security prison.
However, he was reportedly transferred to an undisclosed location. The White House on Monday called for the immediate release of Navalny, saying he should never have been jailed.
A Kremlin spokesperson today commented while on a phone call with reporters, suggesting he doesn't know where Navalny is.
We are talking about one of the prisoners who was found guilty by law and is serving his sentence. And we consider any intervention by anyone, including the United States, unacceptable and impossible.
Spanish police today announced 2 major cocaine busts. In a port on the Atlantic coast, they seized over 7 tons of cocaine from South America. It was hidden inside frozen tuna fish.
Meanwhile, in a second operation on the Mediterranean coast, police found over 3 tons of cocaine hidden in shipping containers. Police say they arrested 20 people. They belong to 2 organizations of Balkan origin.
Police described this as a major blow to one of Europe's most powerful distribution networks. And lastly, what you're seeing here is not just the view on beautiful snow-covered mountains. It's a thick blanket of smog hiding the capital city of Bosnia on Monday.
Multiple Bosnian towns have topped the world air pollution charts since last weekend. Sarajevo has now declared an air quality warning. Experts blame residential solid fuel burning and transportation for a recent increase in pollution.
A meteorologist says Sarajevo is at an even higher risk for air pollution during winter months. That's due to inversion, which is a layer of hot air trapping cooler air above the surface.
Physicians say such exposure to smog poses serious health risks, possibly leading to respiratory infections, cancer, and premature deaths. A $15 million offer to defect from Taiwan to communist China. Prosecutors say Beijing offered a Taiwanese army pilot the money in exchange for an American-made helicopter. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has the report.
The pilot was directed to fly the transport aircraft over the unofficial border between Taiwan and mainland China and landed on a Chinese military aircraft carrier, all during a Chinese military drill near the island. Beijing intelligence officials reportedly approached the pilot last summer through a retired Taiwanese army officer. The pilot declined the original offer, around $6,000 a month, and the promise that China would evacuate his family in the event of a Chinese invasion. He later accepted when the offer was raised to $15 million. Taiwanese authorities arrested the pilot and former officer before the plan was carried out. The indictment comes alongside a Chinese naval drill Monday in the Taiwan Strait, featuring Beijing's Shandong aircraft carrier. The island is preparing for parliamentary and presidential elections next month. China has been accused of trying to interfere.
Coming up, a surprise show with 15-time Grammy Award winner Alicia Keys. The American musician hits the keys on famous piano in a London station.
And a pig pardoning ceremony in Miami. A pair of piglets named after Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce are saved from becoming holiday dinners. What did the mayor have to say about this special tradition? More shortly here on NTD News Today.
I'd like to say this is the first time, but there have been others.
How many?
Who can keep track?
You think this is a joke?
Darling, we need answers, and you're gonna give them to us.
Tell us again.
My car broke down. I brought it here.
I got stuck paying an expensive repair bill.
So it's true.
How much, darling?
$2,300.
$2,300.
Well, what was I supposed to do? My transmission was shot.
You pick up your phone and you call CarShield before the car breaks down.
Plans through CarShield cover up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car.
That's right. A plan through CarShield could save you on some criminally high auto repairs, especially if your car is out of warranty. So, call CarShield, America's #1 auto protection company, before a breakdown and save yourself from getting stuck in car repair jail.
Let me guess. You hate saving money.
Who hates saving money?
Apparently you do.
All you had to do was call CarShield. And you could have protected yourself against expensive repairs.
Yeah, and then my price will go up the minute I file a claim.
Shut up! CarShield has the price locked in.
For as long as you cover your car.
Guess I should have called CarShield?
It's about time you said something that made sense.
Now you know what you need to do next time.
Bet he'll call CarShield now.
So can I go? Or
Don't get handcuffed paying expensive auto repairs. Call now and get the CarShield guarantee. Your price will never go up and your coverage will never go down as long as you cover your car. In just minutes, you could have a plan that covers up to 5,000 parts and systems in your car. Don't wait until it's too late. Get CarShield's best coverage yet. Call 800-965-0729. 800-965-0729. 800-965-0729.
Welcome back. Ukraine's dream to join the European Union is on the table this week. European leaders might decide whether to launch formal talks with the war-torn country.
This could help secure future foreign assistance in the war with Russia. But what hoops must Ukraine jump through to keep its EU dream alive? Let's dive in.
Brussels offered Kyiv candidate status 4 months after Moscow's February 2022 invasion, prompting an immediate rush by Ukrainian authorities to reform priority areas identified by the European Commission. The Commission reported last month that Ukraine had fulfilled 4 of its 7 recommendations. Most requests were aimed at shoring up the rule of law and include hiring anti-corruption officials, preparing the judiciary for a major overhaul, and aligning media legislation with EU standards. The Commission, which suggested the remaining 3 conditions be met before talks were formally launched, said it would assess Ukraine's progress again next March. By last Friday, lawmakers had passed legislation to meet virtually everyone, but accomplishing short-term requirements is just one part of the bid. The Commission has made sweeping policy change suggestions across multiple sectors by the end of 2024, covering areas from public administration to food safety. Ukraine is expected to prove its fight against graft, intensify its crackdown on large-scale illegal smuggling, reform law enforcement, and find ways to reintegrate displaced Ukrainians into the labour market to bolster the economy. There are a number of more granular measures too, like improving the country's state statistics collection and getting its intellectual property rights rules in line with those of the EU. Political challenges lie ahead too. Despite the Commission's support, any decision requires the unanimous backing of EU leaders, and not everyone is keen on Ukraine joining. Hungary has emerged as the bloc's top critic of Kyiv's membership bid. European officials say another summit might be needed early next year if leader Viktor Orban continues to resist talks and additional financial support for Ukraine. Some also say that Kyiv's window to push ahead with more reforms may be narrow. An expert from the New Europe Centre think tank in Kyiv says the Western Balkans' protracted membership process shows accession is not always merit-based and equally dependent on intra-bloc politics. And one European diplomat in Kyiv, who spoke on condition of anonymity, said it will be crucial for Ukraine to demonstrate steady progress to avoid flagging enthusiasm within the EU. Essentially, the stars need to align on multiple fronts for Ukraine to get a true chance at being the bloc's 28th member.
And now we have international military strategist, retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, with us to discuss Congress's search for a deal on Ukraine, Israel, and border security. To begin with, Colonel, I'd like to ask you, why is the renewal of U.S. military assistance to Ukraine and Israel considered critical by so many Congress members? And what risks does the delay pose to national security?
Well, thanks, Steph, for having me on. It's a pleasure to join you. There's always a risk when it comes to sending your money overseas that it's going to be used for the appropriate thing. Ukraine and Israel are not the same problem set. We have historical ties to Israel as the lone standing democracy in the Middle East. So that's critical, but it's also critical to make sure that Israel aid is not tied to Ukraine aid. However, tying some conditions on our own border security to aid to Ukraine is unfortunately necessary, because it seems like we're going to go ahead and help one conflict between Russia and Ukraine while we're leaving our own border wide open. And so we're going to have to force the hand of this administration to make sure that we're taking care of the most essential and existential crisis to hit this nation in a long time, which is an immigration invasion along our southern border. That is the number one concern for any of this. We're also a nation well north of $30 trillion in debt. To give away more money is not always a wise move.
And Colonel, you mentioned conditions. Would you think that the U.S. should attach conditions to any further potential aid to Ukraine, such as Zelensky presenting a plan to end the war or considering an off-ramp in terms of negotiations?
Well, I think that's a very elementary level position we should be taking. Yes, he's got to show what he's doing with it. We also need a full accounting of everything we've already sent over there. And I'd like to see a plan from this administration for what we think we're doing with our money in helping with Ukraine in the first place. Not all problems can be solved by just throwing more money and more materiel with zero plan and zero strategy in place to make sure that it's used correctly, and no accountability.
And I'd like to come back to the border. You know, you've mentioned it's a very important issue here. And how do you think that issue interplays in the long term with our ability to support other nations long term?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you can't guard your own nation, you shouldn't be trying to guard other nations at the same time. You have to first secure your own borders. Because if you don't do that, we're actually facing a problem in this nation where we could be hit by multiple terrorist attacks, or we could drain the economy even more dealing with the illegal border invasion. So if you cannot make the home front stable, you're not going to be able to help anybody else in the long run anyways, and then you made everybody worse off.
And so there is some kind of stalemate happening right now, it seems, in terms of all of these negotiations with regard to the border and the two wars that we're supporting. From a long-term strategic standpoint and to defend U.S. national interests, what kind of advice would you offer to lawmakers who are involved in these negotiations?
Do not bend on anything to do with the United States border and enforce it to every extent of the law. Excuse me, and wherever you have to add to that law or force accountability, do so, because that is the number one issue we have right now, is our own border. From there, then you can begin negotiations on other things that you might be able to tie to national security, but you better have a plan for what you do with the money and the materiel. You can't just keep throwing it over there and letting them use it and hopefully it works.
Lastly, Colonel, considering all of the issues with reaching an agreement here in Congress, what's the likelihood of a bipartisan agreement, do you think? And what kind of pivotal points should we be watching out for?
Yeah, Steph, it's hard to see right now where we're going to get a bipartisan agreement on these things when there are so many that want our border to be just wide open. But you can hold out hope, and maybe there will be, but I guess I would call it 50-50 at best, but it's just not looking good for this right now.
All right, thank you so much, retired Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb, international military strategist. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Steph.
And forget pardoning turkeys. In some lighter news, a Miami cafe is pardoning pigs. This is the 6th year for the new tradition, and this year the pigs are named Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. The county mayor did the honors.
I, Daniela Levine Cava, Mayor of Miami-Dade County, hereby grant a full mayoral pardon for Taylor and Travis and wish them many happy, healthy years roaming their new Miami-Dade County home.
Roasted pig is a traditional dinner for many Latin American cultures. The cafe owners were inspired by the White House turkey pardon ceremony and decided to add the local twist.
The mayor of Miami-Dade County was happy to carry on the tradition when she took office.
It's a great Latin tradition to have roasted pig for the holidays. And usually it's a whole ceremony, going to find the right pig, getting the right box, cooking it over a long period of time. I think it's very important that we do something to not only recognize that it is part of our tradition, but also recognize where the food we eat comes from and to thank those that make sacrifice for our dinner plates.
And a wildlife official made a rare find in southwest Colorado. A piebald cow elk was seen among this group of elk. It's the whitish one in the back. A wildlife biologist spotted it during a big game classification flight last week.
The piebald trait, the result of a genetic mutation, is found in about 1 out of every 100,000 elk. Piebald animals have a pigmented background of hair, scales, or feathers with a unique pattern of white or unpigmented spots. Unfortunately, the unique patterns make the elk easier for predators to spot and attack.
And meet Tim and Jess. The adorable 11-month-old brown bear cubs found their new home at the Brookfield Zoo after being orphaned in Alaska.
The bears were rescued and brought to the zoo last November. Visitors can now catch a glimpse of these playful cubs in their outdoor habitat.
And over to Australia. A sperm whale that was stranded over the weekend on a sandbank at a popular beach near Perth has died.
The whale, which first appeared on Saturday, looked like it was fine when it swam off the sandbank and into open water, but it then died. That's according to officials from the Parks and Wildlife Service of Western Australia.
Government marine mammal experts say the nearly 50-foot creature would already have been in distress on Saturday. Interaction with people who swam close to it and touching it, taking selfies, may also have increased its stress. A surprise show at a London train station. 15-time Grammy Award-winning musician Alicia Keys delighted commuters with some of her greatest hits yesterday. Watch.
Some people want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if I ain't got you, baby.
On a piano donated by British icon Elton John, Keys performed her smash hits like Empire State of Mind, If I Ain't Got You, and No One.
The American singer serenaded the audience for around 10 minutes as the crowd took photos and videos.
Keys was in London over the weekend to headline the Jingle Bell Ball concert at the O2 Arena.
The R&B star has been nominated for the 66th Grammy Award for Best Immersive Audio Album for The Diary of Alicia Keys.
And that's all for today's news.
Thank you for tuning in.
Feel free to reach out to us with news tips or feedback at news.today@ntd.com.
We'll be back with more stories tomorrow.